What is up, guys? It is I, Tables, Ladders, and Sean, and let's talk about the AEW Dynamite episode for September 9th of 2020. I'm going to try to review as many wrestling shows as I can. Obviously, this is just a side project, a little fun hobby for me. If something comes up that I have to do for RGT, that will take precedent over it. But the plan, at least for now, is to talk about as many wrestling shows as possible. So let's just get right into it and talk about AEW Dynamite for September 9th of 2020. The show starts out with Jericho and MJF doing a little promotion, telling each other that they were both screwed over at All Out, and they walk away from each other, calling each other losers. I don't know if that's sort of setting up anything for the future, but obviously this is coming out after the events of the All Out pay-per-view, so there's a lot of storylines that were wrapped up during this pay-per-view that we'll see throughout the night, and setting up new storylines for the future. Now, the first match we had was Jurassic Express with Marco Stunt ringside versus the Lucha Brothers with Eddie Kingston, who I am a big fan of. Yes, it's not just because I look like him. I hear that so much, but I'm a big fan of Eddie Kingston. I'm glad to see him getting a paycheck and a spotlight on a national stage, and the Butcher and the Blade were also ringside as well. Honestly, Jungle Boy is almost like a white Ray Phoenix when it comes to the ropes. Like, he is just absolutely stunning on the ropes. We had a fast start to the match with Phoenix and Jungle Boy starting things out. Pentagon actually, or a Penta L0, whatever the hell they're calling him nowadays, he actually had a very cool attire variation with like a black and yellow instead of the black and white. I thought that looked really cool. Jungle Boy slipped off of Luchasaurus's back for a spot where he was supposed to dive into Phoenix, but he recovered it fine, and it really didn't look too bad. It was nothing like Matt Sydal slipping off of the ropes, who was not at this event. Some people were hoping that Matt Sydal was actually going to be at the AEW Dynamite tonight, but he was not seen. Pentagon and Luchasaurus squared up, exchanging some strikes in the ring. Jungle Boy then went on a tangent, hitting just an amazing array of moves before getting slowed down by Pentagon, who pushed him off the second rope to the outside for a waiting Phoenix with a super kick. Really cool looking spot there. Jungle Boy ended up kicking out of the package pile driver stomp combo from Penta and Phoenix, which is something that we're starting to see where Jungle Boy is kicking out of finishing moves. We saw this at the All Out pay-per-view as well, and the finish of the match saw a miscommunication between Phoenix and Penta, where Penta ended up spiking Phoenix with a Canadian Destroyer, and then Penta got rolled up by Jungle Boy for the 3 count. Now, post-match, Penta and Phoenix started shoving each other before being broken up by the Butcher, Blade, and Eddie Kingston. Kingston then does what he does best. He got on the mic saying that there isn't a British guy here for Penta and Phoenix, that their Blade's wife wasn't there for him either, so stop fighting with each other because Kingston is here for them. Very, very cool stuff. Kingston then tells Penta and Phoenix to shake hands, and Penta actually shoves Ray Phoenix until finally shaking hands with each other. Kingston then also alludes to the fact that he was never technically eliminated from the Battle Royale, and to look up the rules of this. So it was a great opening match that really could have gone either way, and I hope that they are sort of teasing that Kingston was not eliminated from this Battle Royale, because I would love to see a potential program with either Jon Moxley or Lance Archer with Eddie Kingston. I think that would be a really fun match, especially something like Kingston and Moxley. They would just beat the hell out of each other, and the promos themselves would just be absolute fire. Next up, we had a promo from Jake Roberts and Lance Archer talking about the upcoming feud with Moxley. It actually had a really cool backdrop where it was like raining outside, and then we're standing in sort of a brick alleyway that was all tagged up and stuff. Really cool looking aesthetic. Moxley and Archer had a fantastic match in Japan after Moxley left WWE, so I honestly think this feud is going to be a really good feud. Then we heard from Matt Hardy, who honestly looked good, all things considered, the event that happened at the All Out pay-per-view. He addressed the fall at All Out, and he said that he knows he's frightened some people and appreciated the love and support from the fans, and then thanked them. He also says that he went through a myriad of tests and expects to make a 100% full recovery, which of course was great to hear. We actually got a camera shot of his youngest son Marty and his wife Rebecca, who of course was very outspoken on Twitter like we talked about in the previous Matt Hardy video, so that was very nice to see. He says that the vendetta between Sammy and him is over, and it is time for him to get back to getting healthy. So it does sound like he is going to take a break. That is something we talked about in the previous Matt Hardy video. I felt that he was going to be taking a break, and it looks like I was correct with that. It was a very nice segment, and honestly, it gives Matt some time off from wrestling so that he could focus on his health, because really, that was a pretty scary fall. It could have been a lot worse, so definitely hope Matt recovers well. Angelico with Jack Evans versus Orange Cassidy was the next match, and this honestly was a match I was pretty interested in. Angelico has a really weird sort of style, but I dig it, and the man just, well, he just has some fantastic dance moves. Like, don't sleep on the man's dancing. It's really hard for me to talk about Angelico matches because his moves are just so unique with all these crazy ass submissions that he does, but Angelico seemed to have a lot of counters for what Cassidy was trying to do with some of these unique submissions. Orange then took over with a reverse on a knee strike attempt by Angelico, followed by a elbow suicida, a high cross body off of the top rope, a spinning DDT, and then the Orange punch fist. It was a short match, but I thought it was a pretty fun match. We actually had a post-match beatdown with Santana and Ortiz jumping Orange Cassidy before Best Friends came in for the save. The Kentucky Gentleman, Chuck Taylor, grabbed the mic and challenged them to meet them in a parking lot next week at Dynamite for a brawl, and Trent says that they're going to make his mama Sue proud. So next week, this sets up a match between the Best Friends versus Proud and Powerful for a parking lot brawl that's going to happen next week on Dynamite, so I am looking forward to that. Next, we had Alex Marvez trying to get a word in with the Young Bucks at their locker room by knocking on their door, and he was met by a double super kick from the Bucks. The Bucks really looked pissed off, and I'm pretty interested to see where this is going to go because it sort of seems like the Bucks are going tweener, maybe sort of heelish, and I think that really opens up a lot of possibilities for them. Next up was Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford hitting the ring with Tony Schiavone to announce who their best man was for their upcoming wedding. Now, Schiavone actually gets kicked out of the ring by Kip Sabian, and then the best man comes out, except it's some large guy who is allegedly a guy named Puff who subscribed to Kip Sabian's Twitch account. After a bait and switch, another person is announced to be coming out, and it's Brian Pillman Jr. coming to the ring and said that he got a text from Kip saying that he was the best man, to which Kip says, "You meant, oh, you know, you're the best man," with a comma. It was nice to see Pillman Jr. on Dynamite, though. Hopefully he does get signed. I know he is involved with MLW right now. There has been rumors that he is trying to get out of his contract with them, though. And then finally, we got the best man, and this was a big surprise. Miro, formerly known as Rusev in the WWE, is now All Elite, and he will be the best man for Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford's wedding. Miro grabs the mic and says that after 10 years of being under a glass ceiling with the brass ring that he could not attain, that you could shove that brass ring up your ass. He really seemed very energized and says at the end of the promo that, yes, Miro is All Elite. The WWE shots like the brass ring were a little bit corny, but I mean, considering what the man went through at the WWE, I think it's reasonable. And you have to remember, this isn't something like TNA where TNA is scripting the, you know, anti-WWE promos that they were so fond of back in the day. There's a lot more flexibility with AEW where you're pretty much given a mic and you could say whatever you want. So I feel like this was Miro talking and not, you know, some writer in the back that was writing up Miro's script. So I am cool with it. I did think it was reasonable, but you know, you don't want to get too much into that sort of stuff. Next up, Tony Schiavone had a pre-recorded interview with Hangman Adam Page, and honestly, Hangman came off pretty sympathetic, realizing his mistakes for screwing over the Young Bucks for their #1 spot and that he was fooled by FTR. He concludes that saying that he feels that this is a test, but him and Omega will pull through that, but you know, maybe Omega doesn't feel the same way. We'll have to see if Omega has an interview later on in the show. Our next match was a no DQ match between Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss versus Jake Hager and Chris Jericho. This, of course, was stemming from last week's match with Janela and Jericho, and Hager was, of course, eliminated by Sonny Kiss at the Casino Battle Royale. The match started out pretty good with Jericho and Janela, and thankfully Janela got a lot of offense in, way more than he got during his one-on-one match with Chris Jericho the previous week. We got some double team moves from Janela and Kiss on Jericho, with Janela and Kiss really getting the upper hand at the start of the match. Janela busts out a chair and hits Jericho in the ribs and back before being reversed by Jericho and landing on a side suplex onto the chair. Jericho and Hager then get the upper hand of the match and set up a table outside of the ring. Back inside the ring, Janela recovers by throwing Jericho into a chair set up in the corner, and a hot tag to Sonny Kiss, and Hager speed things up once again. Hager goes for a Hager bomb on Kiss with a trash can, but Kiss puts the trash can into Hager's ribs. Janela then ate the table after being thrown through it off the stage by Hager, to which Sonny then hits a double splash on Hager and Chris Jericho. Kiss takes over and really just beats the piss out of Hager and Jericho, but Jericho busts out a fire extinguisher when Jericho was going to finish off, or when Sonny Sonny was going to finish off Hager off of the top rope, and then he eats Hager's finisher. Honestly, this was a really fun match and made Janela and Kiss look really strong, and was a way better match than I thought it was going to be. Everything was pretty crisp, everything looked pretty good. The chair spot with Janela on the suplex from Chris Jericho, you know, the chair moved a little bit, so it didn't look as good as it could have been, but a really fun match, and it really just sort of brings Sonny Kiss and Janela, but, you know, sort of back up after, you know, losing last week with Janela just kind of getting squashed. Jericho then takes the mic and addresses the future of the Inner Circle, and Jericho actually says that him and Hager are going after the tag team titles now, which I think is pretty cool. It's going to rotate some new people into the main event scene, so I'm really interested to see where that's going to go, because I kind of like the tag team of Jericho and Hager, and I think it could be good for building up younger talent as well. MJF then cuts a promo in his campaign room saying that the campaign is over and he blames the campaign for his loss. He berates everyone in the room, including Wardlow. Now, there was some heavy teasing of a fuse between these two, and as a fan of Wardlow, I'm definitely all over this. I love what I've seen from Wardlow so far. That match with Cody in the cage, that match is so underrated. It was one of the most entertaining matches of 2019, so I'm really, was it 2020? I think it was 2019, but whatever the case may be, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more Wardlow. Then we got a Moxley promo up next, basically talking about Lance Archer winning the title shot at the Casino Battle Royale. He hypes up the feud between him and Archer. Pretty standard stuff, but it was a pretty passionate promo from Moxley. Next up, we had FTR celebrating their title win in the ring with Tully, and the ring was surrounded by AEW wrestlers and tag teams. Tully is on the mic, and honestly, I didn't grow up very familiar with Tully Blanchard. I knew him a little bit from the Brainbusters with Arn Anderson in the WWF, but he's just so damn good on the mic. I could listen to this dude talk forever. There's a picture and a cake in the ring as well. I wonder if that cake will play a role into this. Tully then talks about the heat that was going on all night during the event at All Out, as far as the actual heat in the air, and how FTR won the match in 31 minutes, thus becoming the best tag team in the world. Dax and Cash say that they are the new locker room leaders for tag teams now. Jurassic Express then finds out they have a non-title match against FTR next week and get run down by FTR on the mic. Jurassic Express hits the ring, things break down quickly, and FTR leaves the ring. Jurassic Express then grabs an ice cooler and soaks FTR on the outside of the ring. The wrestlers then hit the ring and they ate cake. And you know what? I appreciate this. There was a table set up. There was a cake set up. You're like, oh, you know, someone's going to go through the table. Someone's going to get a cake in the face. But no, they just went in a completely different direction, and all the wrestlers that were involved got to get some free cake. So that was pretty cool. Ricky Starks then came out and says that he's going to beat Darby's ass, continuing their feud, which I really like this feud. I think they're going to have a really great match, and I am looking forward to whenever this match actually takes place. Tay Conti, who just signed with AEW, is in the ring next for her match with Nyla Rose, who is accompanied by, of course, Vicky Guerrero. Nyla powers her way to the start, but Conti uses her speed and tries to catch Nyla off guard. The match spilled to the outside with Vicky getting involved and Conti using the arena to her advantage. A pretty back and forth match, honestly, with Conti getting in a lot of offense and looked really good. The finish was very cool as well. It saw Nyla turning an armbar submission into her sit-out beast bomb power bomb for the win. Vicky then grabs the mic, cuts a beautiful promo with her soothing voice, and Nyla goes to beat up Conti some more, but Shida makes the save. Of course, Nyla is the #1 contender for the women's title, so they are sort of building up Shida versus Nyla once again. I think it'll be a good match whenever it does happen, but I would like to see some newer people get a title shot as far as the women's division is concerned, because it seems like Nyla has just gotten a bunch of title shots. She's already been the champion as well, so I would like to see a little bit of expansion on that. JR then had a taped interview with Kenny Omega. Kenny talks about how he was supposed to be the ace of the company, but essentially lost his direction, and how Hangman did help him find his way by getting into the tag scene, and that Kenny learned a lot from Hangman. He learned a lot about Hangman, but he doesn't really like what he learned from Hangman, and that he has his own dreams and goals, and that it's time for him to get back into the singles scene with singles action. So it looks like the Hangman and Omega feud will now probably be starting at some point in time. Kenny is obviously wanting to get back into the singles scene. Hangman isn't really about that. To me, it looks like Kenny is going back to the sort of cleaner aesthetic, where Hangman is going to be the sympathetic face who was just, you know, lied to and mistreated by other people. So I am curious to see where that's going to go. And then we had our final match of the night, which was the main event between TNT champion Luke Harper taking on Goldust. Now, if you would have told me 5 years ago this was a match I'd be dying to see, I would laugh at you, but I mean, here we are, and honestly, it was a very very good match. We have Dustin Rhodes, who's out for revenge for what Brody did to his brother Cody, so there's a lot of, tension in this match, and Brody is accompanied to the ring by John Silver, who has been absolutely hilarious on the Being the Elite show. If you watch that on the YouTube channel for the Young Bucks, it's absolutely fantastic stuff. I highly recommend you guys check it out if you haven't yet. The match starts out pretty hot on the outside with lots of brawling around the arena before eventually getting things back into the ring. The first few minutes of the match start out with a classic slugfest, lots of punches and chops, including a 20 punch by Dustin that was mounted in the corner. Very, very cool stuff. Dustin is just a crazy man when it comes to wrestling. The man hits a Hurricane Rana off of the second rope and then hits a Yoshi Tonic as well. Like, I swear, Dustin just doesn't age, and he somehow gets better throughout the years. It's really just an amazing thing to see. This man is over 50 years old. He had a terrible drug problem. He's been wrestling forever, yet he's better now than he ever has been. Dustin hits a crossroads on Brody for a 2 count. Brody hits Dustin with a power bomb but only gets a 2 count. Dustin then hits a spike pile driver on Brody, but Brody grabs the ropes at 2, and then we have our ending sequence, which saw Brody hit 2 super kicks followed with the spinning discus clothesline for the 3 count. Brody does retain the belt in an excellent match. I really enjoyed this match. It definitely was sort of an old school feeling match, but you have Dustin doing all these crazy moves. Definitely a classic style match, but very well done between two very seasoned and accomplished wrestlers. The Dark Order comes out at the end of the show with QT Marshall in tow, who is knocked out. Brody then hits a low blow on Dustin for good measure, and we fade to a tease announcement from Cody, but it ended up having nothing to do with AEW. It was about a new show that's coming out on TBS that Cody is going to be a guest judge on, but it is interesting to see TNT using AEW to promote a brand new show because it shows that they're really interested in the company and the company is doing a lot of great things for them. So overall, this was a very enjoyable show. I thought the pacing of it was phenomenal. You never really felt bored. One of the main things I took away from this show was the fact that you're getting new storylines now. It seems like All Out really ended all the storylines that were going on, except for like 1 or 2. Obviously the Brody Lee and Cody situation is still going on, and the Best Friends and Proud and Powerful feud is still going on. Was it Pride and Powerful? If I wasn't proud, then I wouldn't. Proud and Powerful. Okay, that's what it is. I had to sing the song to myself. But beyond those 2 feuds, everything else, such as Jericho and Cassidy ended, Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara ended as well. So it's definitely great to see new feuds coming into this. Obviously, the big thing of the night was Miro appearing at this event. I definitely didn't expect to see him in an AEW ring. I thought maybe he would eventually come, but it's just crazy to see him. I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with him as well. He seems like a perfect sort of competitor to maybe take the belt off of Brody, and you might be saying to yourself, the WWE versus WWE match. Like, you can't really say that stuff anymore because the WWE has been the only really mainstream company for the past, nearly 20 years now. Like, yes, Impact did have that rise for a few years, but at the end of the day, the WWE has had essentially a monopoly, especially on, televised wrestling events. It's pretty much been the WWE with Impact having a little bit of a spurt. So to see something like this, to see these wrestlers, like Brody Lee, like Miro, come into the AEW and really get a second chance at life and really showcase what they're able to do, I think is a phenomenal thing. I could definitely understand why some people feel that, AEW is a little bit too WWE cast off heavy, but that's only because the WWE has had this monopoly for so long that everyone just assimilates every mainline wrestler with the WWE. I think that'll change over the next few years. A lot of the AEW talent is younger talent as well, so they have to be built up anyway. So I'm definitely cool with Miro coming in. I think he's going to be a great addition. I love all of the new storylines and really just top to bottom a very solid show. So those are my thoughts on AEW Dynamite for September 9th of 2020. Let me know what you think of everything in the comments section down below. Did you enjoy the show? What you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy? And honestly, thank you guys for checking out this video. This channel has been doing very, very well. It's definitely a side project for me, but it's something that I am enjoying doing. If you like this style of show and you want more of these weekly reviews for wrestling events, let me know in the comments down below, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Have a good one.